Hey, what's up, guys? Happy Thursday. It is February 18th. Today, your assignment is resource availability and competition. Okay. I'm just kind of looking over the questions, making sure this is all stuff that I think at this point from the videos this week we should be pretty confident about. But just to kind of take another moment, right? Before we can really get into competition, we have to understand what resources are, right? And a resource is just anything that a species needs to survive, right? So if we're talking about plants or animals or bacteria, whatever they need to survive. So typically food, water, shelter, and then mates in the sense that they need to pass on their DNA. So like another one of their species that they can have babies with, pass on their genetic material. Okay, so those are the main things that species are competing for, right? So when it comes to resource availability and competition, if there are a lot of resources available, right? Let's think there are tons of food, tons of water, tons of shelter, tons of mates, whatever. There's not going to be much competition. And competition just means these species trying to get more of the resource than the others. Right? So whether that be, let's make this bigger since I'm not going to use my screen. Whether that be like we're talking about squirrels and winter's coming and these different squirrels are all trying to collect a lot of acorns or whatever, right? They would be competing for those acorns. It's not like they're having to answer math questions and whoever gets the most right gets the acorns, but how they hunt, how they find them, how they can keep them safe, these are all things that the better they are, the better they can compete against the others, right? So we could also have competition across different species. So like these squirrels are trying to get the acorns. Let's say some other birds are trying to get those acorns too, right? Winter's coming, they're trying to stock up on their food supply. That is competition between two different species, right? The resource in this case is food, right? And these different species, or talking about the squirrels amongst themselves, trying to get more of these acorns than the others so that they have enough food to survive the winter, right? So that's competition. So when there's a ton of food, there's very low competition, right? Like imagine if these squirrels like walk up in the tree and there's just a billion acorns, right? And they take some and they walk away, and then the next squirrel comes and takes some and walks away. Like it doesn't matter. It's not really a competition, right? There's plenty of stuff there. So if there's plenty of food, plenty of water, plenty of shelter, plenty of mates, there's not competition for those things, right? But if there is very low resources, right? So there's not very much food, or there's not very much water, or there's not very much shelter, or there's not very many mates, then the competition for those things is going to be very high, right? So now when the squirrel goes up into that tree to get the acorns, there's only a couple, right? He was the first one there, snags them up. Now the next squirrel comes up, oh shoot. Now hopefully that other squirrel finds some more, or maybe he doesn't make it through the winter, right? So that's how this competition, this resource availability kind of makes those populations fluctuate. If there's a ton of resources, there's probably going to be a lot more of those animals or plants or whatever living in that environment, right? But if there's not very many resources, there's not going to be as many of those animals because there's not the food or the water or the shelter that they need, right? So how much resources are available not only dictates how much competition there will be, but how much species there can be total, which we discussed as the carrying capacity, right? So in an environment, the carrying capacity is that normal number of species that will be there based on, the resources and the predators and whatnot. So then our last little piece that we're adding to this is this idea of limiting factors, right? So let's say resources are super high, right? But if there's tons of food, tons of water, tons of shelter, and there's going to be lots of or lots of the squirrels or whatever, what else is probably going to be coming to that area is like predators, right? So a predator would be a limiting factor of another species because those predators are hunting, eating them. That lowers that. So when we think of the term limiting factor, it's just something that will limit the number of the plants or the animals or the bacteria, whatever that species is, how many they can survive there, right? So let's think area around Reno, right? Like let's think about like the hills, right? We have got deer, bunnies, all sorts of stuff, right? They naturally have the predator of coyotes, right? There are some bobcats out there, some mountain lions, whatever, but the Sierra Nevadas, we've kind of hunted, gotten rid of all the wolves, right? So rumors have it there's still some hiding out there. Hopefully there are. That's cool. But let's say this new predator, more wolves start coming into our area, into our hills around here, right? So now those deer and those bunnies, all those critters that have had only a couple predators to worry about, they now have a new limiting factor that comes in. It's a new predator, right? That new limiting factor is going to lower the number of deer, the number of squirrels, all those other little critters, because regardless of how many new wolves there are, they're going to have to eat, right? And they're going to be hunting them. So that's going to lower that number. Another limiting factor could be like disease, right? If disease rips through a species, that lowers the number. That's a limiting factor. Natural disasters around Reno, let's say that hillside where all the deer and the bunnies live, lightning strikes and we have a fire, right? Well, now the amount of land for homes and for food and whatever is limited for these deer, right? They have to move somewhere else. That's going to limit the number that can survive. Okay? So, main idea, resources, what they need to survive. If there's a lot of it, competition's low. If there's not a lot of it, competition's high. Then we get these limiting factors that come in, like predators, disease, fires, whatever that comes in, and that will cause the species to lower as well. More limiting factors, lower number. Lower limiting factors, higher number. Boom. All right, post questions if you need it. Between this and all the other videos this week, you guys should be set to be able to get this stuff done. So hopefully you're doing all right. Peace out. And it's not going to let me stop recording.